Okay.
So, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi. I know we have a little bit of an internet problem maybe, so I'm just going to speak very slowly. How are you?
That sounds good. Yeah, I feel pretty good. There's the circumstances around the internet are a little irritating, but other than that, I feel happy to be here. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I was really inspired by our last call and had so many questions that were coming after that. First thing is, how are you
Mm.
doing? Have you felt a big shift this week? Like, till Sunday, apparently, like a big part of the world that I've been working with was very excited about this Lionsgate portal. Like, it's an energetic shift. Did you feel something there, or was life as normal through that day, Sunday to Monday, and since then?
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't. When did it end?
Well, it
Because I
started on
wasn't really
Sunday.
tracking it.
Well, it started on Sunday and it went into
Yeah,
Monday, and it's just, I mean, like a lot of people are
yeah,
feeling very electrified. Like the intensity of the energy has increased.
yeah. I would say, in my own experience, the last week has been kind of challenging in certain ways, and um, just a lot coming up of my own, personal work and things that I'm processing in my life and my relationships and through my business and all of the work that I do in the world. So for myself, I guess it did feel like some kind of portal, and I did feel something shift probably in the last 48 hours,
Yeah,
where some of the stuckness started to move in
yeah.
in my nervous system in a way.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's how I can relate to it. I mean, I know that there is astrological influences, but personally, I don't really. Some things seem a bit hyped up to me in a new agey kind of way, and so I don't want to completely dismiss them. Like, I'm open to the impact of these events, but I don't want my mind to make up that there should be something. You know, that's
I
my
com
take on
I completely
Lionsgate.
agree. Yeah, I completely agree with you there. It was just so loud this year. That's why I was a bit more interested how people have felt. Usually I just think, the power is within you. It can be any day you give it
Hmm.
power to. And just, I think
Yeah.
if there's a mass thing happening or a mass change, there was something, and especially in the last 2 days. So I wanted to go
Mm.
on with our questions. My first one is, a lot of people are
Yeah.
asking, what is a men's circle and what do you do
Hmm.
there?
Ooh. Yeah. Um, well, I think there's a lot of different kinds of men's circles, so I can only speak to the kinds that I've participated in and run, and uh, they they can be as simple as men sitting together. Doesn't necessarily have to be in a circle, but that's a good shape that's conducive to everybody seeing each other and hearing each other. Um, but yeah, men sitting together to talk honestly about the things that they wouldn't normally talk about with each other, and maybe not even straight away with their significant others. It's a place where we can, a safe space where we can process things that might feel too big to bring home, too big to share. And that might have to do with shame that a man's carrying, that might have to do with just being uncertain. Looks like my internet connection broke up for a second, so I'm just going to repeat myself. So um, that might have to do with some kind of shame that a man is carrying. It might have to do with um, anger that he has, that he needs a container that can hold it. and he doesn't want to bring it home, or just in general, like his relationship issues. Maybe it's like sexual frustration because he's not having sex with his partner. So we can kind of go anywhere in a men's circle, and so it's a container where men can bring their stuff and feel supported, feel seen, feel acknowledged and validated, and so that's the basics of it. But it can also be used in a more embodied sense. So sometimes a men's circle can include ritual. It can include practices such as meditation or breath work, or um, um, something called sacred theater, where we might do some kind of shadow work or acting out things that we wouldn't necessarily want others to see, but we have a space to step into that. There could be, aspecting work or like a role play, where somebody's playing a certain role and processing something outside of the context of the normal relationship, so it can release some of the charge. Yeah, so that's one way of looking at men's circles, and I think there's a lot of them starting to happen and pop up, and this is the kind of work that's been going on for, I don't know, good 30 years in the modern context, and started in 70s and 80s with the work of Robert Bly. And in the beginning, men were getting together around fires and reading poetry, and maybe doing some drumming and dancing and connecting with their kind of wild primal side. So there's so many different directions it can go, and but I think the fundamentals of it is it's giving men a space where they can be more of themselves or explore more of themselves that they wouldn't in their normal environments, because maybe they don't feel safe to go there in those places.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So leading on to that, there is a question that somebody had, and I think it might have a few layers because he was asking from a few angles. The basic question was, do you lie to your partner to make them feel happy? And going on to that is, where does integrity come in? And he's actually asking from the perspective of this code of honor for a man that seems to have been lost, and men are coming back and looking for it through purpose. And so his question was, would you lie to your partner to keep them happy? And I'm assuming that means if you are having maybe feelings for another female, this is a man asking, or actually have done acts with another female. And where does integrity come into all of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm not sure if you're asking of me personally or just my general philosophy or belief around this, but I'm guessing it's more of a general. Yeah. So
maybe both. Depends.
maybe both. Maybe both. Yeah. So yeah, I want to frame this, and I can bring in some of the personal. I think there's right context for sharing deeper truths, and when we have something to share that we know is going to rub a partner the wrong way, I think it's really important that we bring it at an appropriate time, when we've, in a way, metabolized some of the charge around it. And that's part of the value of having a men's group or a men's circle, right? Because we can kind of unpack it and get a little bit clearer and sort of integrate the thing, like whether it's, for example, like an attraction to another woman or something like that, right? Which is pretty normal, right?
Yeah.
So I think one one place that probably a lot of men lie to their partners is with that kind of thing, even if it's subtle, right? It's a kind of pretending like that doesn't exist, especially,
Mm.
you know, it depends on their values and the context of their relationship and what they believe their partner would expect of them.
Mm.
But I think the cultural lie that we tell ourselves is that, you know, when we choose to be with someone, that we're not going to have interest or feelings for another person. And
Mm.
I think that's a bunch of bullshit, you know.
Yes.
So, you know, but then how do we deal with that, right? That's another aspect of it. Um, and you know, I think there's a lot of different ways to process it, those feelings and what comes up, and you know, a lot of it has to do with what are the relationship agreements that you have, right? And um, I'm not necessarily saying a man should share every little attraction that he has with somebody. I don't think that would really serve the relationship that well, because I think for a lot of men it's a biological wiring to have attractions to what, you know, women and their bodies and their beauty, and it's somewhat of an automatic reflex. And so learning how to work with that as it comes up, I think is really important, you know, just sort of metabolizing that attraction in the body, breathing with it. And, you know, I think if it gets to a point where it's more than um, just like this kind of sexual hunger kind of piece, but like maybe a connection has opened up, you know, that's the point where, to me, something needs to be spoken to, you know, with the other partner and shared. And um, I don't think a man is out of integrity just because he's attracted to other people. You know, if as we tie it into integrity, um, but where the integrity piece comes in, and again, this depends on the relationship agreements. You know, like maybe your relationship agreements are to be able to flirt and connect a little bit with other people, and you know, so there's a whole range of that. There's no right way about it. It's just depends on if both people are consenting to what's happening and what's being shared. um, and that's where integrity could need to be cleaned up, right? Are the relationship agreements being broken or bent or flexed? And um, yeah, and I want to make sure I fully answered your question, so I'll just kind of pause there and see if there's more around that.
Yes. I think the gentleman in question, he was asking exactly what you're saying. It's, if you have an attraction, that's okay, but you know, what would be the boundaries of a connection in a healthy agreement? Usually, I think we might also be compromising our own needs when we're agreeing to something that we don't want. So what would be healthy? Like, um, you know, he's like, if I would go on a date with her, or actually I'd go the next step with her, or have some intimacy, would that be out of integrity? We're talking about like the general man's code. And of course, the agreement comes later, like how a man feels at which stages, if
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. Right. I don't. I don't really. Um, I don't believe in like a general men's code. I think
Mm.
that's dangerous when we get into that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Some people do. Some men's work teachers do. I don't.
Mm.
I think we all get. To me, integrity is a very personal thing. So,
Mm.
who am I? What am I here to do and create in the world? What are my
Mm.
values? What do I believe in? And I'm creating this, and this is based on what I'm a stand for. And I think you're absolutely right in that the first thing that often goes off for men is they get out of integrity with themselves. They make agreements that are actually not true, not authentic, because they're trying to please their partner. You know, they're trying to say the thing that's going to give them a sense of security that their partner won't abandon them. And that's where the compromise happens. And so I think it's really important for men to know themselves well enough to be able to own their truth, whatever that is, and to create agreements around that. And so in terms of integrity and how I think there's different takes on this, and my take on it is like there's like a inner knowing that we all have of what's right, and that goes even beyond our agreements. That goes into being a relational leader and having enough awareness and attunement to our partner and their needs. And we don't always know these things, but as we practice becoming more conscious, we also do develop this kind of sixth sense of what is our impact on our partner, and really feeling them and feeling the impact. And I think there's ways that we can have verbal agreements and kind of squirrel our way around them, so to speak, where it's like, oh yeah, I wasn't really flirting with her, but part of you is energetically kind of running something with somebody that you see, right? And that's something I've had to deal with it myself. I'm speaking from my own experience too, because I've done that. And so, and that does come back to integrity in the sense, and this is sort of a different take on integrity, are you in this kind of energetic integrity where it's not about morality and what's right and what's wrong, but are you kind of leaking your energy? Are you and looking at the container of relationship that you're in as a whole living, breathing entity, and what is the impact of me sort of every time I see a beautiful woman walking down the street, just kind of checking her out and trying to get a little something back in whatever way, even if it's subtle, right? So that's something to look at, and really, it's for your relationship in a way, but it's also really about you. And that's where it comes back to the man and his relationship to himself. And it's like, how does it really feel to be like, leaking your energy out this way and that way and looking at porn, and does that make you feel like potent as a man? Does that make you feel in your power?
Yes.
So hopefully that speaks to it.
Yes, exactly. And I would say that for me, it just goes for men and women. I was saying to Todd yesterday when I was talking, I said, we as women, as we have stepped into our power, we're also responsible not to be leaking our energy sexually or emotionally. It's different to have someone to talk to, but that kind of, I'm a victim to, I think we all are responsible in a relationship or on our own not to be leaking emotionally or sexually, so that we can all grow together in a healthy way. So I was just saying, I think it's not just the men, the women are also doing it in some other way.
Yeah. And I just want to speak to that, because where I see it coming from in men, and I think in women, maybe it's slightly different, is it's a looking outside of ourselves for some kind of validation, like, do you see me as attractive?
Mm.
Will you, and in a way, we're giving our power away when we do that. So we're breaking the integral energy of our embodiment when we look outside of ourselves for this external qualifying experience.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I think,
finding also, yeah, sorry.
go ahead. I I I feel complete there. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just finding like more and more women I meet, they also find that very unattractive now, as opposed to before. I was meeting, oh, he looked at me, talked to him, and it's like, will he just leave me alone? So I'm meeting like more and more women who are in their power. They're like, I just love walking in a room and the guy doesn't even look at me. That's just so much more attractive because he's in his thing,
Mhm.
he's doing his stuff. If a connection happens, so there's also a shift happening there in women, like, and it's a really
Mhm.
interesting shift. I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
giving information away, but that's with my women. They're just like, it's so much more attractive.
Hmm. Yeah, and it makes sense. It's like it's and imagine two people coming together from that place, right, where they're not in it to try to get something, to kind of, it's really sort of like trying to fill these unmet needs, so
Mm.
it's a little it's a little vampiric energetically, you know and and if we showed up as two whole empowered people, and sometimes we're like that and sometimes we're not, and that's okay. um, but yeah, there's a lot of new space to explore from there, where you're not just showing up to kind of validate each other, but you're like, oh yeah, I'm pretty solid as I am, and now what's possible.
I
So,
like that. Mm.
mhm.
You had a list of things which I thought were really amazing. You were saying, if we go to the topic of pain, and then I have another question that I heard you say later. The avoidance of pain due to outside stimulus desensitizes us, makes us insensitive. We're seeking comfort through this numbness. And you mentioned, we get temporary relief through shopping, food, alcohol, media, pornography, becoming a workaholic, and a love addiction. And these external forces make us feel better. But they're
Mhm.
an escapism from this moment and ultimately from our purpose.
Yeah. So you want me to speak a bit more to that, or is there a specific
Yeah.
question there? Yeah.
Why are we avoiding this pain? Are we avoiding it actually because we're avoiding our purpose, or because I feel like sometimes we're not actually avoiding the pain, we're actually perpetuating it by these distractions. So we're kind of thinking
Hmm.
we're avoiding it, but we're perpetuating it because we're numbing something that's there.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. There's a prolonging. The pain is essentially there trying to get our attention. You know, it's usually an emotional pain, and that pain has a purpose, and it's like, hey, pay attention to me, like, listen to me, I have something for you.
yeah,
and because it's uncomfortable, we want to avoid it. It's like, oh, I don't want to feel that. That's that. It's really, it's sensations in the body, right? But we we have so many of these societal mechanisms of avoidance, and um, but when we choose to get curious about it, um, I mean, number one, oftentimes it's not as bad as we imagine it to be. It's not so overwhelmingly intense. Sometimes it is, and I guess it depends on how we go into it, and we can talk more about that if you want. But um, what I want to emphasize is that the pain is there for a reason, and it's inviting us into deeper relationship with ourselves. And in that deeper relationship with ourselves, and that intimacy, we get to discover something. And you know, there could be some connection to our purpose there. Oftentimes there is, and you know, I think it's scary, not just because it's uncomfortable, but because there's a often a deeper ask that it wants of us, you know, because so it's not just like, sometimes it is just being with the feelings, and that's enough. But sometimes those feelings lead us down this kind of breadcrumb trail to an unorthodox life, you know, leading us away from these constructed, familiar realities that we've made that have us feel safe and included, and you know, all these things that we need to feel a sense of like belonging in the world, right? And uh, being on purpose is sometimes a radical act, and we have to do the abnormal, we have to do the unusual, and we have to um, sometimes put ourselves out there in ways, and um, break free of these, you know, the identity constructs that we've made and how we've been relating to the world. So, you know, it's not easy work, not easy work, but
Yeah,
it is fulfilling work. And I
exactly.
might have cut out there for a second there at the end.
I still get your
Yeah.
words. That's what I wanted to say, because I'm starting to feel like we don't use these substances to necessarily numb our pain, because it's more we are identified with that pain. And if we would not use these outside stimulus, maybe it's actually to perpetuate the pain. You know, it's just, let's just stay in the pain. So we're kind of numbing it. I get it from these things, but it's still there, but it's actually keeping that self of us that we've identified with. I am this person who is allowed to have this pain and this story, and who would I be
Mm-hmm.
without that? And that's when, you know, when you go to the other side, there's a huge amount of responsibility. So I think that's why we avoid the pain and do all this stuff, because that responsibility is scary. And but as you take that responsibility, you also see your power, which is then more scary. And what am I supposed
Mm-hmm.
to do with this? So that was my thing. It was more, why do we really avoid this pain by numbing it? Is it the fear of going through the pain, or is it actually somehow we know on the other side we would have to kind of grow up and be more integral and take more empowered decisions and be in our values?
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree, and I think you're spot on with that. Yeah, it's absolutely, um, you know, it's sort of a delaying of what's being asked of us. It's like an avoidance mechanism, and yeah, on the other side is something that, you know, it's scary because we don't really know who we are on the other side.
Yeah, but it's the most beautiful and fulfilling thing. And that's
Yeah,
why I like to have these conversations. It's like if you know you can, why wouldn't you want to do it? It's not so scary at the end. And on the other side, you actually feel more empowered, like I'm responsible, but that also brings so much fulfillment in your life.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you know, but I will say, like, and I had a conversation with a gentleman this morning on this topic, and there is an empowerment and an enrichment, but it doesn't necessarily make life easier, you know. And I think for men in particular, we're we're looking for that, you know, pill we can take and everything will be better. You know,
Mhm.
we do the thing and then finally we get free. And and I'm always critical of like coaches that are selling this magic bullet formula. I don't buy into it, and I don't try to promote that, because I think it's uh, if we were trying to enroll people into a process from this, false promise, then um, they're going to be disillusioned on the other side.
Mm.
So I just
Yeah.
like to, and it's not as easy to market, but um, but I will say, there is that enrichment and fulfillment, and that's what creates aliveness. That's what makes life worth living, in my opinion. Anyway.
Yes. So I think that's what I meant. It's like you just feel you have this zest for life. You feel this, it doesn't get easier. There are many more challenges. There's many more things you see immediately. That actually is my responsibility, which you didn't have to see, but it makes you more alive. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.